How do you share your message when you have a fear of being in the spotlight? The answer: lean in. In this episode, I chat with my client, Daniel Quintana, about his evolution into thought leadership. Our conversation will teach you the importance of viewing your competition as inspiration, the exact steps to create a practice of leaning into your fear, and Daniel will also share his insights around standing out and not getting lost in the sauce. Daniel Quintana is a solution oriented creative with an affinity for building teams and building brands. After spending 10 years designing, directing, and building marketing teams for NYC fashion companies, he took the leap and struck out on his own to form the mid Hudson Valley based digital creative agency Blue Rabbit Studios. Daniel's a firm believer in letting passion lead the way. He first connected with me to start building the knowledge and confidence necessary to manifest the next step in his journey, which is to build a coaching practice with a central focus of empowering creatives to turn their passion into soul-satisfying careers. This conversation is part of a special 10-episode client feature where I'm featuring incredible clients who inspire me. If you're interested in working with me, a great place to start would be my Unleashed and Unapologetic training, which is the exact same training that Daniel is in. Head to rubyfremont.com/unleashed and sign up. Today's episode is sponsored by the Mayfair Hotel and Eve American Bistro in downtown LA, which is home of my annual 3-day event, Amplified Soul Live. The 2019 event takes place February 22nd to the 24th. For info and tickets, head to www.rubyfremont.com/ASL. Now it is time to continue this 10-episode client feature with Daniel Quintana. Welcome to today's Thought Leader, where I'm challenging you to rise up, speak up, and create a movement. I'm your host, Ruby Fremont, and I'm here as a catalyst for you, the new generation of thought leaders. Join me every week as I dive into raw and real conversations that will help you amplify your presence, influence, and impact. Hey, thought leaders, I'm back with another incredible client who inspires me, Daniel. You're inspiring me in this very moment because I know that you are leaning into, or perhaps even have jumped right into your edge by being on this podcast with me.
Yeah, you nailed it. Nailed it. I'm dancing on the edge right now.
So why don't you tell myself and our listeners about this edge that you're dancing on?
Right. So the edge that I'm dancing on right now is really about being in the spotlight. I do feel like, and for the longest time, I felt like I've had incredible insight to share, but I'm really, really uncomfortable with putting myself out there for whatever reason. That's still kind of an internal deep dive that I'm doing to figure all that stuff out. But I've learned throughout my career and in launching my own business that the growth really happens outside of the comfort zone. So when you invited me to hop on the podcast with you, as much as it drudged up these feelings of discomfort, I knew that that was the cue. Okay, this is outside of the zone. Time to jump in and do it.
Yeah, and that's so important for our listeners to really take in, because everything, I mean, we've all heard the quote, everything that we want is on the other side of our comfort zone. But it's making that decision to say yes, to do the thing that is actually going to take you outside your comfort zone. And you're doing it right now, and you're modeling for all our listeners. And I just want to point that out and say, like, I honor you immensely for doing this. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that big time. Yeah, there was a big inner dialogue, and there's that critic that sits on your shoulder and says, "Oh no, don't do it. Reschedule it. Push it off." And
Yeah.
that's the guy that I thank for the insight and say, you really led me to this is the discomfort zone. And I'm happy to
Mm.
be here. Really happy to be pushing through it with you. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Um, so you mentioned having like the insight to share, but then this hesitation with being in the spotlight. I want to know more, and I know our audience would love to know more about what are these insights that you really want to share, and also what is this fear around being in the spotlight? Because I feel like a lot of our listeners probably resonate with that.
Yeah, so so we'll start with the insight. So the insight that I feel I have to share is just a culmination of what I've learned throughout my career as a creative in the fashion industry, working for the corporate realm, and working my way up the ladder there, and then taking the leap and starting my own design firm and really trying to strike out on my own.
Mm.
All of that came by way of pushing through this zone that we're dancing on.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and when it comes to that inner feeling of discomfort, you know, I can't really put my finger on what exactly it is about being in the spotlight that makes me uncomfortable. But if I had to come close, it would be just giving too many fucks, right? And I don't drop the f bomb a lot. I'm
Mm-hmm.
feeling comfortable doing that here
Mm-hmm.
while we're in your space. But the reality is, I give so many that I'm on the borderline of fuck bankruptcy. So,
Mm.
so it's a matter of really digging deep and prioritizing and realizing that I do feel like I have insight that I can share that can help guide other individuals that are looking to make a career out of being a creative. And we're all creators, but I believe that there are a lot of people that you know, have an artistic talent, have an eye, have a gift for whether it's video, audio, whatever the case might be, that just kind of hold themselves back for that very same reason.
Mm. And what a mirror for your journey. You know, it sounds
Right.
like everything that you're wanting to do for others is what you have experienced or are in the middle of still experiencing.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like that's going to be kind of the push pull of it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I know, so you worked in corporate and then you decided to go out and do things on your own, which in itself is such a massive act of courageousness and bravery. Um, and in doing that, you start to dismantle some of the old programming that probably at one point told you you couldn't do this. You know,
Exactly.
so by actually doing it, by actually creating Blue Rabbit Studios, by actually putting in the work, it's like telling yourself a different story. Here's what's possible. But there's more to this story. Like there's a next chapter that is currently unfolding. What is that next chapter for you?
Well, so in my creative career, as I was moving up the ladder in the corporate realm, building into marketing teams, creating marketing teams for these accessories companies that I was working for, that's where the seed was planted for Blue Rabbit Studios, which ultimately is a collective of creatives who can execute towards a common goal.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm implementing that, I'm always kind of looking down the road to see what the next step is.
Mm-hmm.
I see that there is opportunity to take everything that I've learned and apply it by way of helping to guide others who are trying to tread that similar path or blaze their own trail when it comes specifically to that niche of creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I feel like that thought leadership is something that I've already established within myself. It's about bringing it out. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where I'm so grateful for our connection, because I'm learning a lot through the groups, through the trainings that we've done, through our one-to-one sessions that are really helping me see that this is something that's already there. It's just a matter of cultivating it and bringing it forward. And that's exactly what I'm looking to do with these future clients.
Mm. Yeah, I really would love for you to share a little bit more on that piece, on how all of this is actually already housed within you,
Sure.
and how you're bringing that forth, because I feel like all the thought leaders listening, we've all experienced that, you know, at some point, like we want something to shift. We have this deep knowing that we want to create this different life for ourselves, but we get stumped on the how.
Right.
And the how is really like stepping into it, like you're doing right now, and like I've seen you do through our entire coaching relationship. But talk more about that piece within, and like uncovering that within yourself.
Yeah, so I've really found throughout my journey that it's all about leaning in.
Mm,
You know, again, it's a recurring theme. It's when you feel like you've got something inside you that's meant to be shared, it's really there. It's just yourself that's holding you back.
mm,
So when you're feeling that discomfort with putting your ideas out there for, you know, any number of fears, fear of rejection, fear of, you know, misinterpretation, whatever the case may be, it's getting it's not really getting over that fear, because you don't really get over anything. You have to get through it. You have to
mhm.
push through. And it's so once you identify that within yourself, it's a matter of taking the future into your own hands and pushing through it, just
Yeah,
doing it.
yeah, I love that. So it's like identifying the fear and then taking action to push through it. And
Exactly.
that's essentially what helps us get to the other side of fear, which is, where the things we want lie. And um, I love that you mentioned that we're supposed to push through, because a lot of people talk about being fearless, and a lot of people talk about, getting to a point where you just have no fear. And for me, I believe that that's a very dangerous place to live, because if you don't have fear, then what's really driving you? And fear is also one of these things that are innate. We feel fear because we're uncertain. You were uncertain about showing up on a podcast, so you feel that fear, but you leaned into it to prove yourself wrong, the fear wrong, and share another story with yourself, so that then becomes your new program, which is so, so important. um, Now you want to do this work, you want to coach specifically with creatives, is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So why is that so important to you?
Well, because it's reflective of my journey. One of the biggest things for me is creatives. This is generalizing, but most creatives are really very introverted,
Mm.
have a hard time with that pushing through, whether it's their shell, their fears. I do a lot of sharing of quotes with you, just along the love punch line.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that really resonates with me is that courage is not the absence of fear, but rather realizing that something is more important. And so when
Mm.
you realize that you've got something to share with the world, whether it's your artistic talents, your ability to cultivate that in another individual, that's more important than the fear of being seen in a certain light. So
Mm.
that kind of trumps whatever fuck currency we're talking about.
Yeah. And it's so interesting that you say, the majority of creatives are introverts, because the more, I'd never heard that, but now I'm thinking about it and I'm like, oh, you know what? Like, a lot of the creatives that I know in my life are actually like that. And um, they're so talented. Like, you have so much talent within you yourself. And what a shame to not share that with the world. So for you, having this next goal of building a coaching practice to empower creatives to turn their passion into a fulfilling career, like, that is powerful. um, why do you feel creatives, like, what, other than being introverted, like, what are some of the struggles that they go through that prevent them from really putting their work out or their message out to the world?
Well, I'll try to stay away from generalizing because I
Yeah.
know everybody's situation is a little bit
So
different,
let's
but
talk about you.
exactly. And that's really why I feel so drawn to working with creatives, because it's the struggle that I dealt with that I feel like can help shine a light on what they have within them.
Mm.
It's really the for me it was very tough to put my work out there at first, and then I had to break through the fear of rejection, the fear of criticism, getting feedback and not taking it ultra personally, because I had this connection with my work where my work was me.
Right.
And really separating myself a little bit, to the degree that not everybody's going to see my artwork or my output in the same light as I who created it. And taking a step back and realizing that creates that feedback is really something that I can use as actionable steps to improving myself and improving my work and taking my career to the next level.
Yeah. So using the feedback for improvement versus getting stuck in it, which I think a lot of people do. They dwell in it.
Right, right, absolutely. And another one is the dreaded imposter syndrome.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
so easy, especially as you're learning and building your creative practice, to feel like you're not at that level of designer XYZ over there who's really pumping it out, and having that your sights set on somebody else's work as a reflection of how good you are, really holding you back from putting out your best material or moving forward in any capacity.
Yeah, and it's so crazy with the imposter syndrome and comparisonitis. Like, we're only seeing people's reels. We're not really seeing all the effort, energy, resources, time that has gone into getting them to where they're at today. Like, we don't see that. So it's really easy to disregard, all the stuff that they've done in order to get to where they're at. which makes us feel more like shit. So, I mean, really, and it's
It's
funny because
true. Yeah.
this brings me back to, because I remember one of the assignments. So Daniel's in my Unleashed and Unapologetic training, how to become a thought leader and build a cult following. And I remember giving an assignment pretty early on. It was to unplug, right? It was like to go offline. And I had given this assignment, and to everyone listening, this is a really phenomenal assignment. It's not just about unplugging, it's about freeing your mind to connect with your truth. And so if you were to unplug for just a day, you feel relaxed. If you were to unplug for a week, imagine what that would do to your comparisonitis.
Right.
It frees up so much time. And I know you unplugged. You unplugged this summer. What
Absolutely,
was
in a big
that
way.
like for you, and how did that impact? Because I think before that you were in a place of really feeling challenged to put yourself out there, and you were comparing yourself a lot, if I remember.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I follow a lot of individuals, or at the time I was following a lot of individuals that were just pumping out content and
Right.
feeling like, oh man, I'm lost in the sauce. If I'm not keeping up and posting every day, 2, 3 times, coming up with all of this excellent insight just to throw out into my timeline, that I'm not going to be seen as the thought leader that I truly am.
Mm.
And I liked the unplug was very important for me because it allowed me to connect to myself. But one other thing that took me to the next level was your challenge to really unfollow.
Oh,
And
yes.
so I literally took my Instagram following down, not my following, but the amount of people I was following
Yeah.
down from something crazy, in the thousands to like 55.
Yeah.
And it took a lot of the noise out of my timeline. And that's not to say, I can't appreciate other individuals' work, because from time to time I will, I'll do a little Instagram stalking or Facebook stalking just to check out where they're at.
Yeah.
But it's really all about keeping the inspiration in the timeline and not so much the competition in the timeline.
Yeah.
It's a personal rephrasing. So that exercise really helped um, kind of change my perspective on how those individuals who are doing really well were just at another stage in their evolution.
So important what you just said there. That, the people that you're looking at or comparing yourself to, or even like looking down upon, like everyone is just at a different phase in their evolution. We're all
Absolutely.
on this journey called life, but we're all just working and playing at different phases. So that's super important. And thank you for bringing up the unfollowing spree. I do recommend you also do that, thought leaders. Unfollow, unsubscribe. Just clear your channels so that you can start to focus in on what is really important to you and the message that you want to spit out. Because when you're following a lot of people, it's very easy to become influenced by their words, and to feel like shit about yourself, but also to start almost regurgitating what other people are saying. And that
Right.
takes away from your uniqueness. So that's super powerful. So another thing you said that I loved, I wrote it down, was getting lost in the sauce. Um, I fucking love that, because that's how a lot of people feel, right? Especially with social media nowadays. Like, I'm just going to get lost in the sauce. I love this. I'm going to use it, Daniel.
It's all
Um,
yours.
but and especially, for the work that you do, it's so easy to put yourself out there and then feel as though your message is getting lost. So what are you doing now that is different, that you feel is preventing you from getting lost in the sauce again? What are you doing now that's different?
Well, so the interior dialogue, the inner dialogue has
Yeah.
changed quite a bit. I really now look at other creatives that are putting out high quality work as inspiration,
Mm.
inspiration as to where I can go with my own game. And also that I can show other individuals that, there is a past, a present, and a future. And it's not just about looking at those who are doing really well as those who are doing better than you. It's just
Hmm.
that at this point, again, we go back to the stage in the evolution. They've either put more time in or have focused a lot more on that particular craft, honing that skill, and using it as the dangling carrot, so to speak, to move yourself forward so that you can level up and progress. And that's only going to happen by putting yourself out there.
Yeah, and what an important insight too, because it feels like you transition from seeing people as your competition to now seeing people as your inspiration. And
Right.
that's huge
Big time.
because I mean, that changes, that reframes everything. So now instead of looking at someone's Instagram feed with disgust and judgment, because really you're just mirroring how you feel inside, and don't shake your heads, thought leaders, we've all done that. But now you're looking at people and be like, wow, this is what I inspire to do, or I inspire to surpass this, or wow, look at what they're doing. It's an incredible shift in our thinking, and it's really what we need to do as thought leaders. Is we need to start seeing everyone for their truth, and we need to start seeing the world for its truth, and versus like these stories that we fabricate, that create this distorted reality. So that's
Oh,
super
absolutely.
powerful. Inspiration versus competition. um, I would love for you to give our listeners your own personal tips, on leaning in, because leaning in sounds great, it's fancy, I'm going to lean into my fear, but the actual like doing it can
Hmm.
feel very fucking hard. And it sounds like you have really created a practice out of leaning in. So for our listeners who really want to start to thrive outside their comfort zone so they can achieve what it is that they're looking to achieve, what are some tips or advice that you could share with them that would help them get into this habit of leaning in?
Well, I would say without a doubt, the number one tip is that experience is the greatest teacher. So if you
Mm,
don't ever get out there and do it, you're never going to learn how to level up. And
mm,
failure, it's never actually, I truly believe this, it's never actually failure unless you accept it as such. So
mm,
if you stumble, if you drop the ball, if what you put out, which you thought was your greatest work of all time, ends up flopping or getting no comments or no love, no shares,
mhm,
that's just an opportunity for you to then take the magnifying glass to it and see what you can do better the next time.
mm,
And so this is, of course, I'm telling myself all of this because I've got to get out there and start doing quite a bit of it myself. But if I don't put myself out there, I'll never learn how to truly shine. And that's not creating a shine. That's
mhm,
taking the shine that's in there and getting through that barrier and letting it out.
mm,
I don't believe that anybody that I could potentially work with in the future doesn't already have it in them. It's
mhm.
just a matter of bringing it forward.
Mm, I love that. Bringing it forward. Yes, it's a process of uncovering and unraveling, all the programming that we've been learning. So thank you so much. Experience as a teacher, and failure really isn't failure, people. So start reframing the way in which you are showing up in your life, and really embed yourself in the practice of leaning in. um, Whatever it is that you could lean into today, even lean into that today. What is really scaring you, but if you did it, it would take you closer to what it is that you want to achieve. Lean into that today and start doing this every single day, and you will be so surprised at where you will be 30 days from now if you did this practice. um, Daniel, any final thoughts for our thought leaders today? Is there anything that you want to leave them with?
Yeah, I would say, if you're feeling like you're in my position where you're trying to get yourself out of that comfort zone to grow, it's important to really realize, you get a little bit of perspective when you realize that there will always, no matter where you are in your evolution, be somebody that's quote unquote better. I don't like to get judgy, but
Mm-hmm.
there's always going to be somebody who does what you're doing better, and there's always going to be somebody who does what you're doing to a lesser degree.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're only looking at those who are doing it better than you, you're setting the bar so high for yourself that you could potentially fall short and lose all of your motivation.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I'm really so excited to work with other creatives, because I feel like being able to work with somebody who not as lesser than me, but isn't necessarily at my level in my process of evolution will help me kind of get a better perspective on moving forward. So I would just say, if you see somebody who's struggling and you feel like you can help them, lift them up. It's going to be the best practice for getting you to the next stage.
Beautiful. Thank you. Why don't you tell our thought leaders how they can stalk you online?
Oh, absolutely. Well, you can find me at on my website at bluerabbitstudios.com. I've got a free download there about branding your business, which is something that I do currently. That's my current business, is branding, advertising, marketing. You can find me on Facebook / Lito Q or Daniel the Blue Rabbit, and Instagram, at Blue Rabbit Studios.
Cool. I'm going to have all those links in the show notes, and be sure to download his free gift. So, Daniel, thank you so much for joining me on this very special episode of today's Thought Leader. It's been an absolute pleasure, just really witnessing your evolution, and I'm so excited to see what comes next for you, or what you create next. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for inviting me to dance outside of my comfort zone. It means a lot to me.
You're welcome. To our listeners, thank you so much for joining us on this special client feature on today's Thought Leader, where I'm challenging you to rise up, speak up, and create a movement. Be sure to tune in tomorrow. We'll be featuring another incredible client and thought leader who inspires me. If you're interested in learning more about the training that Daniel is in with me, go to rubyfirmon.com/unleashed. And while you're there, check out my upcoming 3-day event in Los Angeles, Amplified Soul Live. The link for that is rubyfirmon.com/ASL. Side note, Daniel, I better see you there. And if you have any questions for myself or for Daniel, please hit us up on social media. This episode was sponsored by Mayfair Hotel and Eve American Bistro. I will see you here tomorrow for another special edition of today's Thought Leader.